Captain to bridge.
Spock here.
Any signs of life?
Negative.
Have you tried all hailing frequencies?
Affirmative. No answer from the cube.
Have the department heads meet me on the bridge.
Already standing by.
Life sciences.
Same report.
So are we gonna just let it hold us here? We've got phaser weapons. I vote we blast it.
I'll keep that in mind, Mr. Bailey. When this becomes a democracy.
You realize that the aim will, of course, be very crude.
I don't care if you hit the broadside of a barn. Just hurry, please.
Captain, why should I aim at such a structure?
Mind, Spock. Just get on with the job.
Thundering across the galaxy and into legend. The last brave starfighters who become Space Raiders. The action explodes as the fight for freedom races across the universe.
Get us out of here!
A frightened boy, a last-ditch hero and his alien crew, soaring into battle to save the galaxy.
There's another one coming in.
Such an appealing little boy.
But you touch this boy, I'll kill you where you stand.
Desperados, battling for their lives, suddenly given something to live for.
Things are always happening that we don't expect. Now, you can think of them as an ordeal, or you can think of them as a great adventure. It's the adventurers who make it.
We got no retro rockets. We're gonna crash!
High adventure, non-stop danger, a battle for life and glory with the future of the galaxy in the hands of 5 desperate outlaws and the 10-year-old boy who teaches them the true meaning of courage.
Don't let it touch you!
Space Raiders in a last desperate battle. Aliens from 1,000 worlds.
And now for you, boy.
Soaring through deadly laser fire. With the one boy brave enough to challenge the deadliest force in the universe.
We can fight him! Look, you're a kid. You're no gunner. I'm the only gunner you got. Come on, kid. Let's go get him.
He's a stowaway on a stolen ship, 10 years old and 10 million miles from home. Space Raiders, the greatest adventure a kid ever had.
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net's Future Imperfect. This is the show where we talk about mostly sci-fi. It could be science, it could be things that have happened in the industry, but also sometimes we just talk about sci-fi movies. It could be Star Trek, it could be Babylon 5, it could be Space 1999 for all I know. But I am one of your hosts today. I am Lieutenant Commander Mike the Burban, but I'm not alone as I trek across a interesting movie that was selected for us this evening. I'm joined by the person who most often compiles these things and always shows me the most, quote, interesting movies. My brother from the lovely land of Kitchener, Ontario, Canada.
Alex here. I'm sorry, I guess, for this one. I'll say that ahead of time.
Yeah. And then, of course, from the great and wonderful land of Lansing, Michigan, we are joined by...
I'm Aaron Pollyea.
All right, so tonight's movie is one that I had never heard of, but Alex typically says, like, okay, guys, we're going to watch these pair of movies. Tonight, we're only going to cover one of them. So believe me, we need a couple of weeks between these. And I watched the trailer with my friend Liam last night, and the movie we're going to be watching tonight is a movie I want to say comes from 1983. I think it was produced by Roger Corman, called Space Raiders. And watching the trailer, I was like, okay, this is like low rent Star Wars. You have my attention. And you know, you've got your aliens, your cantina scene, your Han Solo kind of stand-in, and I hate to say this because I don't like speaking ill of child actors. This kid, there's no other way to say it. He's creepy and weird, and I don't know.
What,
It's fucking weird.
You didn't like the random, let's just film this kid looking around in all directions without giving him any directions and have him just be silent for the whole movie?
Yeah, it's fucking bizarre with this kid. Like the movie anyway, the trailer did not make a good impression on me. And I was like, okay, that's certainly a thing. But at the same time, I like to be exposed to different things because if I've learned anything from listening to Earth versus Soup, sometimes there's the best of the worst. And other time there's that thing that is stuck to the bottom of your shoe, or in my case, my wheelchair, you just can't get rid of except, you scrape it off or use a hose. And this movie is a thing. So I'm going to pass it over to Alex.
Okay.
How did you find out about this, man?
Well, this and Ice Pirates, which is going to be a film that was supposed to be part of this double feature that we decided to split up. I thought they were the same movie for years and years, only because I had never seen either. But when you go to your local video store or corner store, there'd be like always a few movies on the shelf. The boxes for these movies were perpetually on the shelf. I don't think they were ever rented. The dust had caked on. But do you remember those big box VHS tapes that came like, big cardboard, you open it up and it had a clamshell or like a plasticky inside, but it was like a thicker, bigger box with like a silvery sort of color on the outside with the poster put on front of it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, okay, so it was there. Every used book/video store ever always had Space Raiders, and I always meant to rent it, and then something else would come up, and I'm like, nah. And then I saw Ice Pirates, and I was like, oh, I thought it was called Space Raiders. Like in my head, I was like, oh, I must have had the name wrong the whole time. And then I found out like only a couple of years ago, I'm like, wait, these are two different movies? Like it blended into my head. So I was like, okay, that's my background with it. And then I remember looking at the box and being like, okay, it's clearly like a Han Solo Star Wars ripoff that we had a lot of. Like, is this an Italian movie? I'm like, it doesn't look like it's an Italian movie. It could be. And then I was like, as I got older, I knew what Roger Corman was. And just before we went on air, we had chatted that, this is a Roger Corman, a recycling movie where he uses sets. Like, 'cause in watching this, I was like, there's a lot of scenes in here. I'm like, this reminds me a lot of Battle Beyond the Stars. And it turns out it's because that's the film that it's a lot of B and C quality copy. Like you can see, it's not using the original master. They didn't use the original film. They used like master tapes or something to like reuse the scenes over and over again. Because I kind of remember Battle Beyond the Stars having better video quality, even though this is from Blu-ray.
Supposedly, all the music is just recycled from Battle Beyond the Stars and Humanoids from the Deep. But the thing is, when I was watching this movie, this is the only thing that kept my attention. Was that even though it's recycled from other Roger Corman films, the musical cues still sound like, except for like a single note and maybe 3 bars, the soundtrack from Star Trek The Motion Picture.
Yeah, I heard that, and then all the sound effects to me, and even some of the incidental music reminded me, like, and Mike, you'll probably pick up, it's a lot like Transformers, the cartoon show.
Yeah, like
there were a lot of moments like not like the movie and not like the main theme song, but like when they'd have the in between stuff when it's like like in the background when they would be transitioning scenes, all like the laser sound effects and everything. I'm like, this is like straight up Sunbow Entertainment G.I. Joe Transformers. Like, is there some like movie library that they got all the stuff from? And then I started to think maybe it was just that Corman made it and then licensed it out to everybody.
Yeah, that would be certainly a thing that would make a lot of sense. I mean, that would keep the studio going.
Yeah, the overarching musical score, you're right. Like, I was like, this is very Star Trek-y. And I was like, but I couldn't pinpoint which particular Star Trek movie. But yeah, that makes sense. If, Battle Beyond the Stars was made to, like, a lot of those movies people think were made, or they're made to copy Star Wars. Well, sorta, yes, but they also aped on a lot of Star Trek, right? Because they're, coming out a year or two later, right? So I could totally see that. But yeah, when I saw that James Horner was on this, I'm like, why was he doing a Roger Corman movie? But
who knows? That's the only thing that really kept my attention is the musical stuff, because if you take out all the things that were recycled from other Roger Corman films or just other films in general, there might be 10 minutes of material here, maybe.
Yeah, this movie, I found it at times hard to follow, and what I mean by that is it was just very boring. Now, the thing that kept my attention is, like, I'm a big prop guy. I like sets. I like special effects. And in a certain sense, I kind of like what I saw here, because I thought some of the alien makeup was really kind of cool. There's a bad guy. His name starts with like a Z. It's like Zetan or something. He's like this alien guy who like kind of screws over our crew here. In fact, who wants to give us a super high level summary of
I'll do very
what
quickly because I just watched it, right? So
thank God. Thank God.
I'll give you a brief summary. and I'll mention that Zarthian or whatever his name was. Let me see. Let me pull that up here. Yeah, Zarathian or Zaratian. He looks like a cross between what's the was it Guido something or other in
Greedo.
Greedo. He looks like a cross between Greedo and the Gorn.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And at least with the makeup they put on him, obviously he can't blink because they couldn't do that in cheap costumes then, but they gave his mouth enough room to have better emoting than a lot of makeup from back then, so it was a decent enough job. I'll say some of the attempts at comedy don't really fit. I mean, the alien prostitute was kind of funny, a little bit.
That is literally the only time I laughed watching this.
Yeah, she's like, hey, you looking for a good time, and like, we're having a good time, and they walk away.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, that's not too bad. But I didn't recognize like pretty much anybody in this movie except for Dick Miller.
Yeah, that was a weird random voice cameo. I was like, what?
Yeah, that's Crazy Mel. I was like, is that Dick Miller? That is Dick Miller. Okay. But in looking at the other cast, again, didn't recognize anybody. Basic plot, without going too into detail with anything, is movie starts, boy is playing in robot factory, I should say, with like the very like Dr. Zoidberg / I don't know what accent that's from in the States, but it's only in the States where you hear somebody say robot. And all I heard was robot over and over and over again, like ribbit, but robot. And I'm like, who made this movie where like they're just like robot? Oh, the robot.
Yeah.
Factory. Like,
come on, folks. We have to load all the cargo pallets because we got inspectors coming. Get those robots working. Yeah, it
was like, and I'm trying to figure out. It's like,
the accent was very strange.
It's not Boston. It's just like a Dr. Zoidberg voice, which is like somewhat like caricature of it. It's mixture of some ethnic background with something to do with, I'm assuming, East Coast.
What I got from it was somebody trying to do a Minnesota accent and failing very badly.
Yeah, like yes, it's Dr. Zoidberg if he was from Minnesota.
Yeah,
but
Minnesota Zoidberg.
Minnesota Zoidberg.
I never thought I'd hear that.
Don't you know? Anyway, boy is just playing around in a factory, finds an alien bug, and he's just like, I'm a little kid. I'm already kind of boring. And in the middle of the announcements, a bunch of people just walk in. There's no security. They just walk in and start shooting everybody. And like, blah, 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 blah. And it uses all the sound effects from, like we said, a lot of 80s cartoons. A little bit of blood. Some people get shot. The robots are like robots straight out of 1970s black hole movie. It's pretty much. I've seen better costumes in the Logan's Run TV show from that era. But anyway, they take the kid as a stowaway because he decides, hey, I'm the most irresponsible 10-year-old I've ever seen. And I'll say this. You want to talk about having no emotion? The kid just watches a whole bunch of people get murdered and he just sits there wide-eyed like, huh.
Can I go home now?
People are getting shot around me, and there's a guy bleeding out in front of me and dies, and people are telling me to move, and I'm just sitting there staring like I have no direction. Like he, like it sounds
because
bad,
they didn't do any of that stuff in front of him. Technically, like they just brought him in to do his little close-ups.
Yeah,
and he
but
hadn't realized what was going on in that scene yet.
you guys are going to be like Alex, but I was sitting here watching it, and I was like, are they going to reveal that this kid's like a special needs kid or something? Like, I thought that there was something cognitively wrong with him, the way he was portrayed. And it's like, oh no, they just gave no direction to a kid that has no talent at all. And occasionally when he does speak up, it seemed random. Like it just didn't, it was like a real flip-flop between how the character was portrayed. But anyway, he stows away on the ship, and they make it out into space, and corporate leader lady, who I don't even know if they ever say her name, is there. She's like, send up the robot ship. And the robot ship is going to be the future because it's fully automated with AI, and we don't need people. It can just go and do whatever we tell it to do. And don't worry, it won't kill your son unless he shoots back at it first or something.
Yeah,
and,
SS Skynet, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the father of the kid is like, my kid's on there. Oh my God. Maybe don't bring your freaking kid to the like, I just let him wander around a factory that has had things rated on them recently and multiple times. It's like, whatever. They go to a space station, which they do the Star Trek thing where instead of the big reveal of the Enterprise, it's just this weird pan of an admittedly pretty good miniature model. It's not bad, of the space station. And it just cuts to this kid who's keeps like looking in random directions. He's not looking at the screen. He's looking up, down, left, right. Like it's like he's slowly rolling his eyes, but not at any one thing in particular. It's like they use like camera test footage of him. And then they're in the space station, which is supposed to be like the Mos Eisley Cantina, I think.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
And Dick Miller's on hologram.
Dick Miller's on hologram selling was it space cars or something. and
hey, I love it when Dick Miller is ever on screen. So
yeah, well, that's the highlight. The prostitute in this scene is probably the highlight. So you got like 30 seconds in an 83-minute movie. And these bounty hunters are going to kidnap the kid because they're like, he's tagged and they're going to be able to track him. We can use this for a bounty. And a bunch of random times this movie is just the kid getting in the way because it's annoying and he's annoying. And somehow miraculously every time he gets kidnapped or is in the way, a crew member goes to save him and gets killed. And eventually, there's the lady who was not into having kids gets shot and dies, and everybody else dies. Oh, and like the Dollar Family Spock dies, who had like Shining level mental connections for some reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He somehow these people end up liking this kid, but the kid has done nothing. Like
then a guy like at the end of the movie,
he
right?
like did save the ship because like he was willing to go into like a small cargo area, I think, to like fix a panel. He's like, hey kid, can you do that? You're small. He's like, okay. Yeah, and then they teach him how to use one of the laser cannons.
They wouldn't have even been chased, kept his ID tag on him the whole time, which they knew he had. Why didn't they just take the tag and airlock it?
Oh, and remember they convince him to actually commit murder.
Yeah.
I mean,
like a responsible adult.
Yeah, they ditch him on a planet, fly away. I'd rather die in space alone than be with you anymore, kid. Bye.
Well, and also
enough of your shit, Junior.
So anyway, yes, back and forth. They do that in space. The Zeranian, the Gorn. Okay, the Gorn decides that he wants to ransom him for space gasoline, and it doesn't go well. There's a big shootout. Everybody basically dies. There is a shootout with the alien or with the robot ship, and he's told, which they magically seem to know how to destroy this ship that is the new state-of-the-art thing that nobody's ever seen before. And instead of a random exhaust hole in Star Wars where it was like an oversight considering the gigantic nature of it. Like the idea was in Star Wars, it was hubris, and they're like, well, nobody can do that because we're so overpowered. Like it made a little sense within its own.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit, and it was also the bureaucracy and of the fascism, blah blah blah. We're perfect, nobody can beat us, blah blah blah. This one, nobody's ever seen it before. Nobody knows anything about the ship. It's a brand new prototype, and they're just like, he's like, they've got to power down their shields when they fire. It's like, well, how do you know that? They didn't steal any.
Is that standard? Is that standard on across all ships? But you haven't talked about that before in all the big ship firefights that you've been in.
Yeah, and
right?
it's crazy robot ship where they're supposed to be able to fire perfectly and blah yada yada. Anyway, blows it up. It has dad on that ship.
Mm-hmm.
Like, isn't his
so actually? Yeah,
like they never show like his. So he killed his dad.
Yeah.
He's like, I want to go home.
Enjoy life, kid. Go enjoy life.
I want to go home. It's like, okay, but first you got to kill your dad. And I was like, what? And then we're just going to leave this 10-year-old on a planet. He's like, I've never seen trees before. Okay, good luck with fucking bears. Okay, goodbye. Kid who's never seen plants.
What's crazy is with watching this movie, like I watched it a week ago, right?
Yeah.
I barely remember it. And the thing is that it is bad, but it's not so aggravating that it's memorable. It's entirely forgettable. Entirely.
Yeah. We've watched a few films like this before. There was the Radiation, the Canadian Radiation one, where it had that one had a good premise though, where it was like people are up in space, and while they're up there, nuclear war happens, and they come back down to Earth. And
you're talking about the one that has like the bomb blowing up right at the end.
Yeah,
when they're going off in the boat. Actually, I kind of do remember that film, but
yeah, because that was more memorable than this, and that was even lower budget than this was. So it's not about budget; it's about intent. I think a lot of times here, and I don't think they intended to make a good movie.
No, I think as soon as I got done watching it, I think I messaged you guys and said, this feels like a really half-assed backdoor pilot for a TV series.
Yeah.
That shouldn't have ever been released. This is...
It feels like before it feels like something that they would have been like, hey, you know what we need? We're a brand new cable channel in this brand new world of cable. And it's like, what if the USA Network, what if HBO back in the 80s was like, hey, instead of licensing a bunch of British stuff, let's make our own cheap sci-fi, because that's the big thing now. And look, if somebody can come watch sci-fi, that's before Star Trek came back and everything, right? I could have seen them doing that, but it's like, this was rough, real rough.
Yeah.
A lot of ADR in it too. A lot of like, randomly they'll cut to somebody and you can see their mouth is moving, but it's a different voice coming out. So I don't know if it was a language barrier with some people or not.
I don't know. Looking at the cast, I think there's some like Italian people in it. But I think everyone knows how to actually speak English. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like this movie baffled me. Again, like I watched it. You're giving me like the plot synopsis. I only remembered that like Dick Miller was in it, the prostitute scene, and then the kid like just committing murder. Like that's about it. And then like the music just being strangely Star Trek. Like except for single notes that are different. It was very weird.
It was so odd.
I don't know what else I can say about it. Like, I'm baffled that it was made, but also it makes complete sense in that Roger Corman always wants to utilize what he has to the greatest capability that he has to save money, right? So, I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm gonna let me see here. I'm trying to think of anything else that might be good to say about it, and I can say that I'm glad I finally watched this, because otherwise it was going to be left in my head like randomly, and in the future, I'd be getting flashes of that VHS tape box for years and be like, I wonder if that was any good or not. I mean, ultimately, I knew it wasn't going to be good, but this was still better than. It's better than some things I've seen. This is a better movie than that new Borderlands movie I saw in theaters.
I haven't even seen that yet. Thank God.
That is so bland, but there's nothing you can pick out of it. Like, you know what I mean? When something is just so, it's such so bland. This had a few moments, but it's ultimately forgettable. I would not recommend anybody watch it. Maybe watch a couple, random clips. Could you think of any scene that was actually memorable in this outside of having Dick Miller in a part? I couldn't.
The prostitute scene sticks in my head because I thought it was the only funny thing in the movie, so it stood out to me because of that. Like, and literally, like, less than 30 seconds. And like, yeah, granted, the special effects for a Roger Corman film were pretty good. I have no problems with the special effects, but they're all reused.
And that's, I guess, I wonder if this movie had a budget of like $25,000 or something, just to piece it all together. We'll probably never know. But in looking at some of the trivia of it to sort of finish this out, I didn't realize that this was one of the first movies that was made by New World after Corman sold the company. I thought he just changed the name of the company, but sure. I guess he sold the company for $17 million, which is about 100 times the budget of this movie, to, I guess, form another company out of it. And he was contractually obligated to stay aboard and redo some productions on stuff. Now, it's quite clear that I don't think Corman would have been opposed to, if he had been still in control of the studio and everything, doing something like this, but it seemed even lazy for one of his regular productions, even for that era. Mm-hmm. So I can see why, this was sort of, I think, done to fulfill some of his own contractual obligations before he went off with, what was it, New Concord or Millennium, whatever he called it. I think afterwards.
Millennium, I think. But
yeah.
So like New Horizons, I think it got turned into at some point.
Yeah. So it feels like this was like I still have to be on board for like 2 years or something to do X amount of pictures with you. Well, guess what? We're going to take one of my movies and we're going to make 6 other movies out of that one movie, and we'll fulfill my contract that way. You sons of bitches. That's what it felt like to me. So
yeah,
it's in that sense, it's fine. But beyond that, it's going to be a footnote in the history of Corman films. If you want to watch these special effects and watch them better, just watch Battle Beyond the Stars.
Agreed. I think the worst kind of movie is a movie where you're just bored watching it. I'd rather watch a bad movie where I'm like aggravated by it, or really truly baffled by every single decision. But this is like, I can understand why these scenes were shot. I can understand why these special effects are being done. I'm just completely uninterested because the plot is so standard. The acting is
non-existent.
Uninspired. Yeah, non-existent, uninspired.
Yeah.
The pacing is boring. The action scenes just aren't exciting. The stakes are incredibly low. I don't know.
The only thing that I liked about this, truthfully, is I was surprised how violent it was, because like the entire crew, like Hawk's crew, everybody dies. And I was like, wow, that's kind of intense for what was intended to be a kid's movie. And
did you notice that there was no point to the movie? Like, nothing actually gets accomplished except a boy decides to wander into a ship and kill his dad.
Yeah, and he basically, like, he stows away. Like, kid, your direct involvement has led to the death of this entire crew. This was something that was entirely preventable. You should have went left, when right was obviously the right choice here. Whatever I'm trying to say here, but
yeah, like that's the problem.
Yeah,
like if that was the point of the movie, that this kid's choices resulted in the death of everyone, That might dark, granted, but at least it would have been a point to the movie.
And I mean, the only good thing that comes out of it is, I guess he kills the robots, but it's not. But no,
he learned some minor gunnery skills, I guess.
If a 10-year-old boy can do it, then it wouldn't have taken the military very long to figure it out. But I'll give this movie one thing, Michael, and you might be surprised to hear this.
Okay.
So the role of Peter, the young boy, do you know where you've heard or seen him before? Most likely heard him before?
No.
He's the voice of Daniel in Transformers, the movie, and season 3 and 4.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So he did go on to do something.
He went on to do something that he probably would like to be remembered for a lot more than than that. He was also apparently in a Berenstain Bears cartoon, so sure.
I was doing a little bit of research, and evidently the kid did like an interview for the special features for this movie at like some point. And I know this movie was featured on Red Letter Media sometime in their early catalog, something like before episode 50, I want to say. Okay. And like the thing is, I wanted to like this movie because my experience with a lot of the Corman catalog is remarkably light. And the only reason I know anything about Corman is because I listened to a month of Dave and Enrique on Do You Even Movie doing a month of Roger Corman movies. The only Corman movies I've ever seen on my own was, I think, Death Race 2000, and I think he has involvement in Slumber Party Massacre, I'm thinking. But I was like, okay, it's bland. I mean, like, sure, there's a lot of death in this, so okay, cool. I like some of the costumes, I like some of the sets, but I've also never seen Battle Beyond the Stars, so that's probably why. Like you mentioned earlier, there's some fairly impressive miniatures work in this, but it's just like you said, Aaron, this movie's forgettable. It's badly paced. Nothing happens. Low stakes. This kid is wandering around with no clear direction. And it's not a knock against him, but you're right. The way he's portraying his character, he looks so wide-eyed. You're like, is there something
wrong?
Is not the proper term.
Like, was not wrong, but like, I was like, is there something cognitive with this kid, or is the reveal going to be he's secretly a robot?
Yeah, or like he's more
he's
in tune to the universe or something.
I will say this, Michael. He's done mostly voice acting. He did one other big movie, but I say big as in I love this movie, even though I know it's not good.
Okay.
Over the Top. He's the son of Stallone, where he's trying to win the arm wrestling.
Oh.
So it's like, and he wasn't terrible in that. He was significantly better. It was a few years later, but it's like, okay, so I mean, then again, Stallone is let's be real, a much better producer than Corman got in his later days. And I'll be honest. So Stallone is a better director and producer than Corman ever was.
Oh God,
no. Oh.
Okay. As far as producing something that is watchable and good, in good and intentionally good. Corman, you had to like really pick through it to find something that holds up to today. Like there's nothing in Corman's career that is as good as Rocky.
True.
Yeah.
True. I will agree with that.
That's the best way I can put it.
I do think that his early like B-movie sci-fi type stuff from like the 50s and 60s that Darlene and I have talked about in general, while it isn't good, it's not bad. Like
no. When he was much more hands-on in his younger years, he had an eye for doing the best with as little as possible. And I feel
doing stuff in '92, didn't he? With like Frankenstein Unbound.
That was like the last time he directed. Yeah, it was the last time he put money into something he wanted to actually make. Like you could see he wanted to make it. Battle Beyond the Stars, I think, had the like privilege of being the most expensive movie he ever produced, based on like inflation and stuff. I think it was like $4 million US at a time when wasn't Star Wars only like $7 million when they made that? So like
something like that. Yeah, it was fairly small.
But I think he built that movie on the knowledge that all of the props and sets he would reuse like endlessly. Like he knew that was going to be the case. So that's how he justified putting actual money into it. Because most of his pictures were like anywhere from 100 to 400 grand per picture for most of his career. So putting several million into that one, it made sense. The only problem was he wasn't as creative as he could have been in reusing certain elements. So the movie's rough. Don't watch it. Maybe watch a couple funny clips. I'm assuming watch if you want to get more out of this. Obviously, watch like Red Letter Media.
Just watch the trailer. Yeah.
If you want something better than this, you don't have to look far.
Yeah. I mean, there's much better Corman films in general.
100%.
I mean,
100%.
Little Shop, the original Little Shop of Horrors, for example, is probably Corman's best film.
Death Race 2000.
Death Race 2000.
Yeah.
Frankenstein Unbound, I think, gets a bit of a bad rap. I think it's worth checking out.
Big Dollhouse, I can think of. He's uncredited in that, but he's involved.
And
he produced the Carnosaur movies.
Well, see, that's the problem. Only problem. I'm not going to go on a tangent too long. Just Corman's career post 1990. The problem with it is how much of it is him producing, and how much of it is putting his name on it because it'll have a cachet or to it when all he's done is like put up 20% of the financing. Putting up money for a movie does not equate to you being a producer, even though Hollywood would like to disagree. I don't think he was hands-on after maybe 94,
maybe.
Let me see here. After the Carnosaur films, I don't think he. Yeah, like Raptor and all stuff. 2000, like from 2000 onward, I don't think he really did anything himself. I mean, he was already
signed checks.
He signed checks, maybe said yes or no to a few high-level agreements, and because beyond that, it's like Carnosaur, the Fantastic Four. He did do that, the one that was made to keep the license.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess technically that's like the last thing he probably had a lot of hands-on stuff with, because whatever. But again, that was like $1 million. He never really touched, a big budget picture ever. It would have been interesting to see what he would have done had he come into the age, if he was still young enough to have been producing movies in the modern era where everything is like super duper cheap instead of just signing his name to it. Because, this is rough. There's a few others that are like that. You'll probably have to go back to, like Aaron has said, the 50s and 60s to watch like good Corman movies. And that's all I got to say on this. I don't know how to end this other than ugh.
Yeah.
I mean,
was not
like,
enjoyable.
Yeah, this was one of our least fun movies we've had a chance to watch on the show. But again, always interesting to learn something about a director producer that you don't have a lot of experience with. In my case, it is what it is. So next time on the show, it's going to be me, Alex, and Aaron, and we're going to be taking a look at another movie that Alex was able to dig out of the dustbins of history. We're going to be taking a look at a movie called The Ice Pirates, which I was able to watch last night, and Bruce Valanche, that's all I'm going to say so far. And that's an experience, to say the least, and I will have thoughts on that next time here on the show. So as we close out the shift here on the Future Imperfect, we have been from the great city of Kitchener,
Alex.
From Lansing,
I'm Aaron.
I'm Mike the Birdman, looking around aimlessly. We'll catch you guys next time right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
Computer, this is Captain James Kirk of the USS Enterprise. Destruct sequence 1, code 1, 1A.
Computer, initiate the self-destruct sequence. Authorization Janeway Pi 110.
Computer, this is Captain Benjamin Sisko. Initiate auto-destruct sequence. Authorization Cisco Alpha 1 Alpha.
Begin auto-destruct sequence. Authorization Picard 47 Alpha Tango.
Self-destruct in 15 minutes. There will be no further audio warning.
My lord, the ship appears to be deserted.
How can that be? They're hiding.
Yes, sir. But the bridge seems to be run by computer. It is the only thing speaking.
Speaking? Let me hear.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
Get out!
3,
Get out of there!
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.